Yeah, Alcatel-Lucent has been in a fantastic tear. It's one of the biggest turnaround stories in technology in the last decade. We were lucky enough this morning to sit down and talk to the CEO of Alcatel, who joined us from Paris. Here is that interview.
Well, the world is changing dramatically. I mean, people used to do things that were closely related to the screens that they were watching. They would do entertainment on TV, and they would work on a PC, and they would communicate on the mobile. What happens now is they do all applications on all different screens, and that means that there's a lot of things going on in our market, which is good for us. And it is something that's not just happening in one market; it's happening all over the world.
How have you been able to focus your company into this kind of amazing turnaround?
Well, first of all, we're on a journey. So we're on a 3D journey to earn the right to be a normal company, as we have baptized it ourselves. And then, of course, the next step is that you want to be better than normal. I think we are focusing on three elements. The first thing is we focus on innovation. If we want to have a chance to impress the market, it has to be around innovation, and that's where we focus a lot of our attention. The second thing is that there is that transformation from a voice reality to a video reality, and our IP and our optical products are absolutely focused on that. And the third element is this is truly global. It's happening all around the world at the same time, and we have a global footprint. So I think we should be able to benefit from this.
Well, talking about the global nature of this, at the G8 summit, there was a lot of talk about the effect of traffic, Facebook traffic, Pandora traffic, Netflix traffic in Europe. Are you seeing that pick up in Europe?
Oh, yeah. First of all, as I said, this is a global phenomenon. You're absolutely right. The behavior that people have, what they do with their smartphones, what they do with their tablets, what they do with the capabilities they now have is very, very different than even 3 years ago. So that is a reality. I think the best problem that we have to look at is this explosion of data has to be translated into profitable business models. And if there's one thing that the world is looking for is how do we get a balance between those who benefit and those who have to invest? Because that's the big question that we have around the world. We have hundreds of billions that needs to be invested in high-speed access.
Well, it's an interesting issue here with carrier capital expenditures in the U.S. Been a lot choppier this year, in part because they're being asked to carry and pay for all this traffic from Netflix when the likes of Netflix aren't paying for it themselves. What do you see right now in terms of carrier capital expenditures in the U.S.?
Well, in the U.S., there are two things that are very interesting. First of all, you remember the days that the mobility market was mainly driven from Europe. That's over. I mean, the U.S. have taken a very important lead when it comes to embracing 4G and all the ecosystem around it. The second thing is that the U.S. has become a kind of base for all the new applications, and it seems that the one startup after the other startup is focusing very much on what happens around this integrated market, and it happens to be in the U.S. So therefore, the U.S. operators have a much better basis to make cases for investments into the new capacity than maybe some other parts of the world. It will come there, but in this case, a little bit later.
Well, and yet their spending has been really bumpy in the first half of this year. They haven't been laying out the cash, even though you're saying they have the best case to do so. Why is that?
Well, it's a matter of definition, of course. How much is much? How much is enough? I think if you look to the build-out of 4G, the nationwide reach that President Obama has promised to have high-speed internet access to 95% of population within a couple of years' time, and the focus that the market has on differentiation, there's a massive incentive in the U.S. market. You can see the same in China coming. You can see in some of the Asian markets coming. It is still in the ballot in Europe.
Well, let me ask you finally if you think that the capital expenditures of the telecom makers worldwide are decoupled from the economy, that this demand for data has separated them from an economy that may be having ill effects.
Well, if you look to capital expenditures of telcos around the world, you have to make a differentiation between that part that is about building technology and capability into network, and the other part which is civil works. So a lot of the freedom to allocate some part of the capital expenditures is all about what is an addressable market for us compared to the total capital spend of operators. But in general, you're absolutely right. It is the end user that is driving the behavior, both for those who develop applications, those who make networks. That's for sure.
Now, let me give a little context to what he had to say there, because when you look at this company, the turnaround's been really dramatic. If you look at a one-year stock chart of Alcatel, it tells you one thing, which is what stock charts will do, that the price has gone up tremendously in this company. But a stock chart, when you do these drill downs, we always talk about the stock chart only tells you one thing. The company news behind it is what's really dramatic. And what's really dramatic for this company is how much the sales growth has really changed. If you look at I've got another chart here of the quarterly sales change year over year, and you saw a company that was shrinking, a company that was getting smaller in terms of how much it sold, changing to a company that was growing quite a bit more, where sales growth is at about 15% year over year in the last quarter. Why? Because they're selling the stuff that delivers all the information on the internet, whether it's Facebook pages, Netflix movies, Pandora music. Alcatel-Lucent is displacing competitors like Tel Labs and Cisco, winning contracts with the big carriers, both in the U.S. and, as we heard, in Europe. And that's why this company's really turned around. That said, from a stock basis, one might argue the stock's really cheap, trading at half sales. Compare that to 2 times sales, which is what Cisco's trading at. Clearly, Alcatel-Lucent might have a long way to go in terms of stock appreciation as their business picks up.